Hi all, I'm Neelam Chand and I feel energized because I was invited by Redemption Bank and Women's Leadership Institute to celebrate and spotlight the new face of leadership. I have the opportunity to interview exceptional women leaders who have carved their own career paths and in unconventional ways. It isn't about perfect resumes, it's about the real path, the pivots, the doubts, the unexpected turns, and how women actually build leadership in the world that we live in today. My hope is that if you're listening and feeling stuck or uncertain or behind, you'll hear something today that reminds you that leadership doesn't have one template. It has many. And often, it looks a lot like you. Maile Keone, thank you so much for being here with me. You're a CEO at Listen Technologies, creating inclusive experience through sound. The company empowers exceptional listening experience with innovative, award-winning products and solutions. But the interesting thing about your background is you did not have an engineering or operations background.
I don't.
You came up through sales and marketing.
I did.
And I feel like in some technical rooms, I don't know if it's still the same now, that technical skills is what's valued and what will move you forward within an organization. How were you able to get into an executive space with this sort of soft, what they call it, soft skill? How were you able to break that?
I think it goes back several companies ago. So the past 3 or 4 companies that I've been with have been engineering founded and led. So an engineering founder would come up with an idea and then they would create it and sell it. So a lot of times I would go into a company and one of the first things I would do as a marketing person was poll 10 or 15 of my friends and say, what do you think this website does? And then I would take it back to the CEO and say, here are all the answers of no one knows what you do. So by creating value, really, it's how I think anyone becomes successful. That was how I kind of broke into that space where I could take an engineering-led company that had babble on their website that no one understood and turn it into something that people wanted to buy. And that was really the path. I did that actually over and over again from a marketing perspective. And marketing and sales are so closely aligned that it was a natural thing for me to do both.
Yeah, because you knew what people needed and wanted and what they needed to understand a product or anything really. Yeah. And so that was
your value statement.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like that's important because a lot of women don't necessarily go through moving up in a tech industry because of that, because they're worried, well, I don't have the engineering technical background. Right. But
it's intimidating.
Yes.
It is very intimidating. I started at WordPerfect, which you're all too young to know, right? And
I used to use it, but yeah.
Yeah. And then I worked at Novell, which was highly technical, right? Local area networks, LAN software. And for a long time, I probably shouldn't say this, but I would just fake it.
Yeah.
I would just say, well, here's what we do, and then I'd introduce the technical engineer. And so having somebody to partner with who really does understand the technology makes a difference. And then actually faking it's not really a great idea. Like admitting that you don't know is probably a much better idea. But I did come up through fairly technical software and hardware companies.
Yeah. Where did that come from for you? Like, I was going to say audacity. Only because we don't have that. We see a lot of men leaders have audacity to just go do all the things, but we somehow stop ourselves. So where did yours come from that you were able to just sort of, you know what, I'm going to fake it for now.
Yeah.
I'm going to hone in on this other skill set and then I'm going to move my way up.
I think it really comes from my childhood, and I was probably should be ashamed to tell this story, but I was thrown out of Sunday school when I was 12 years old because I kept asking questions. I would just raise my hand, raise my hand, raise my hand. And finally, the church leader called my parents in and said, she's got to stop or she can't come anymore. I don't know how many 12-year-olds that got thrown out of church. But my dad pulled me aside. My father was a really wise man, and I was very interested in business, and I would ask him questions every night when he would come home. And he pulled me aside. My mom was so mad. But my dad said, look, this quality that you have of curiosity, it drives everybody crazy today, but someday it's going to make you highly successful. And so don't lose it. He kind of whispered, just kind of hold on to it and tuck it in. And so curiosity is one of our corporate values. And I've carried that everywhere with me. The most successful people do first principle thinking, and they try to nut everything down to the simplest thing, and then they ask questions. And that honestly, I think, is a huge secret to success. Just don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah. And you had mentioned before we started filming that you have a secret sauce in your leadership and the way you do leadership, which I thought was pretty amazing. So tell me about your secret sauce.
Well, the secret sauce is really the people, and that comes across quite trite sometimes, but my secret sauce is that I'm able to hire good people. I joke because it's not really my only talent, but I do say that it is one of my core talents is finding great people and then just letting them go. If micromanagement's over here, I'm probably a mile that way, in maybe too far. But I'll just give you a couple of examples. So there's a woman who works with us. So I've been at Listen 12 plus years, and she was an intern when she started there. And she now runs our entire channel marketing program. So she's our channel marketing manager. She probably makes, more money than, she makes a lot more money than she did when she started, but she probably pays her nanny more than she made when she started, right? And that is such a success story to see somebody grow like that. And so it's just seeing talent and hiring great people and then giving them credit and letting them kind of run.
Yeah, because we were talking a little bit about leadership and sometimes what we perceive them as someone who maybe embodies like a lot of the credit.
Right.
And we put leaders on a pedestal, especially if they're CEOs of a company. We honor them. But I loved what you said, that your employees are the ones, it's the group, it's a team of people that needs to be the ones that should be honored, not you. And you kind of shy away from awards. And I thought that was really...
My CMO gets so angry at me. She says, you will do this. You will speak here. You will do a podcast. You will accept this award. And I'm like, but do I have to? Because what I always want to say is this award belongs to the people who work there. And it really, truly does. I got kind of emotional during our company meeting. So we had an exceptional year last year. We launched a product in January. We were first in the market. For 9 months, we had no competition. And it was a crazy year. Like, it almost killed most of the staff and myself. Like, we just run so fast and couldn't catch up. But our sales were awesome. And so at the end of the year, we, gave out bonuses and we thanked everybody. And at the beginning of the year, I got choked up because my success is on their foundation. Like, they are the reason I'm successful. I wouldn't be where I was today without those 100 amazing people that come to work every day and do a great job.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
So any award I get should be like chopped up into 100 pieces and given out.
That's
truly.
I mean, and I hate to say it, but I do think that's a rare thing. I see that very commonly with women leaders that don't always take the credit for everything. And so I think that's a great example of just showing what a new leader would look like today. So I appreciate that.
Our ego should not get in the way of success.
I think that's where, when we talk about women leaders and we talk about what that looks like in today's world, the ego part has not taken so much control. And I think that's really important.
It's a huge balance because you have to have some audacity. You have to have some chutzpah. You have to have some grit.
Yeah.
Right. But boy, not too much.
Yeah. Yes.
So
and I think we know how to balance that a little bit. So speaking of that though, you run a company whose mission is making sure that no one's left out of conversations. Has there been a moment in your life where you either were left out or just were not heard from in a room, or any situation that you felt like you were not seen or heard?
Well, I will tell you, when I went to China for a trade show, there were many customers who refused to speak to me because I was a woman. That was many, many years ago. It was also a very interesting time. When I went to Japan many years ago, I was told that I had to walk 2 steps behind my boss, which was also an interesting thing culturally. I actually believe that we should honor cultural traditions as long as they're not offensive or harm anyone. At the same time, being a petite, ethnic woman, you definitely get opportunities where you do get overshadowed. I was actually speaking to my VP of marketing, who's a woman, or a VP of sales, who's a woman, just a couple of days ago. And a male colleague was saying to her, do you ever get in a situation where you're speaking to a man and he'll only speak to the man? And she said, all the time.
Yeah.
And he said, well, what do you do? She said, oh, I just, kind of go along and insert where I can. And I think one of the most important things for women to understand is not to minimize it, but at the same time, not to take like an outsized offense, right? Yeah. Some of this stuff, we just do have to not go along to get along, but we have to figure out how to change it without being so militant that we lose the audience, so to speak. And again, that's a balance, right? I can tell you stories that would make your hair curl if early in my career, with some of the stuff that happened. But so there have been instances. And I think for me, it's again, that moderation of trying to educate. Hey, I'm over here, right?
Right, yeah.
Or trying to answer politely and with some grace. I think that's the other principle that I try to operate with.
Yeah, and maybe not to internalize what may be happening. That it may not be a indictment on who you are.
Exactly. It very rarely is. It's more an indictment on who they are and the lack of education or the lack of having a good role model. I'll tell you one funny story. So we were in a conference room having a meeting, and my IT guy was at home sick. And this was probably 10 or 12 years ago. And so he was taking the call from home. And there were, 8 or 10 of us in this conference room. And I was speaking, and we were just going back and forth. And I heard this little girl's voice, and she said, oh my gosh, your boss is a woman. And everyone in the whole place just went completely quiet. And I said, yeah, sweetie, she is.
She sure is.
And he was mortified, and I thought, oh, and then when he came to work the next day, I said, you probably should have a conversation with your daughter about the workplace and how it works.
Yeah.
What's going on in the world today. But that was just something funny that stood out in my career.
That's amazing. So has it changed? I mean, you've been in the tech industry for 30 years, or plus 30 years, right?
It's plus 30 years, yeah.
What has it changed, and what do you think people need to understand to change if it's stuck? When we think about women in tech.
Yeah, I think it's changed. I think it's changed quite a bit. There are so many allies out there who want to do the right thing. I wrote an article recently about allyship versus, actually being an advocate, right? That was the difference for me. Was allyship is a word where, okay, they're going to support us, but being an advocate for women and an advocate for women in the workplace. And this all started because of the hoo-ha last year about the CEO of the Year award, and there were, I think, 5 white men, right? And so there was this big LinkedIn blow up, and one of the men that had been nominated was an old boss of mine. So he actually called me up, and I remember walking around my yard for about 2 hours, and he was like, Maile, we try so hard, and I've been trying to hire a woman CFO, and I've done this, and I've done this, and I've done this. And I said, Brian, you're an advocate, right? You're actually trying to do things to move the ball forward. I've got 3 daughters. I've got, I hear this all the time. I have another friend who's a venture capitalist, and he said, we only have 1 woman out of 90 women in this investment program that we have. How do we change that? And so we helped him get more in the next program.
Yeah.
So it's slow going, but there's so many people out there that are aware that there's disparity and there's gaps and there are things that we need to work on.
So there's willingness. There's willingness. Yeah. It hasn't fully changed, but there's
a lot of willingness, but there's not a lot of education.
Yeah, so people just don't know how.
Yeah, I actually feel sorry for them sometimes because they're trying so hard, but they just don't know what to do.
Yeah. Yeah, so, that makes sense.
And they want their daughters to have a better future.
Yeah, yeah. So the young woman or the young daughter who saw you as a leader, it probably made a big impact on her, just that one moment.
I hope so.
And so let's just say you were in a situation where you were sitting across a woman who maybe doubted herself. What do you want her to understand about leadership today, what it looks like today?
I think the most important thing, and I joke sometimes, but I think if someone like me can end up in a position that I have ended up in, then anyone can do it. There's doubts and there's barriers and there's struggles and there's fear. Fear's probably the worst one of all of them. But at the same time, anyone can do it. Like literally anyone can start a company, anyone can raise money, anyone can excel at what they do.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I tell young women all the time is really early on in your career, you do have to decide if you want to be a generalist or a specialist. And that's a pivot point for so many people that they don't understand. And if you want to be a CEO, you want to be in the C-suite, you have to be a generalist. You really can't be too deep of a specialist. You have to know a little bit about a lot of topics in order to be really, really good at that level of leadership. Or you are an engineer, or you're a great marketer, or you're a great salesperson.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong. I mean, the company needs all of that.
Yeah.
But if you're going to be a great leader, there's this kind of generalist mentality that you really need to learn a lot about a bunch of different things.
Is that what you chose? Or do you feel like you kind of oscillated between the two?
Well, I actually didn't choose. Back at WordPerfect for about 8 years, I was what was affectionately called a gunslinger. And every time they had the CEO, Pete Peterson, every single time he had kind of like a problem, he would call me up. And this started because I started in customer support. And there was a couple of issues there that I solved and figured out and got curious about how do we do this better. So in 8 years, I had 8 different jobs. So he would call me and say, hey, this department's having some issues. I want you to go over there and spend a couple months. And it was like an MBA in business. So yeah, I learned a lot about different aspects of the business through my time at WordPerfect.
Oh. So if you were to think about a different kind of leader, can you finish this sentence? Last question, by the way. A different kind of leader is someone who blank.
It's someone who thinks in years and executes in days. So you think long term, but you can execute every single day.
I love that. I'm thinking about myself in that way. I think that's going to be really helpful as people think about themselves as a leader. I love
it's
that.
one of the hardest things to do because you have to think out so far, what do I want the company to look like? What do I want this set of leaders in my own company to look like? What do I want this set of, anyone in the company? What's their path?
Yeah. How long out do you envision this?
There's I find it pretty trite because you hear it all the time, but there's the saying, you underestimate what you can accomplish in 10 years, but you overestimate what you can accomplish in 5 years. So I always try to have like a rolling 3 to 5 year plan, kind of like both for business and for myself personally.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you, Maile. I appreciate your story, and I appreciate your just creating a different path for people to think about what leadership looks like. And the way your leadership is rooted in humanity is really important. So thank you so much.
Thank you.